This is an example of a channeling that I did back in 2014. And I thought you might be interested in finding out what it's like when I receive a message and how that message is communicated to me. So originally, I write all the messages down in a big notebook. And then if I'm doing the reading for somebody, I will transcribe it and I will give the reading to them in a typed up form. Because sometimes when I'm channeling, I write really, really fast and the messages are coming through really, really fast. And my handwriting isn't very easy to read. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you the original channeling that I did. I have the person's name whited out. And I'll show you what the original one looks like. And then I will read you word for word what the channeling was all about. So here's the original channeling. You can see the date on there is 11/9/14. And I did this channeling through my higher self. I asked my higher self to help me understand why someone I knew was experiencing so much physical and mental anguish and causing her family so much pain. I put myself into a trance state, and this is what I wrote down, and this is word for word. This individual is the victim of what we in the spiritual realms call a walk-in. This means she opened herself up to receiving an entity, and the energy of that entity overwhelmed her. It overwhelmed her consciousness and stole the majority of her light. It is like an energy vampire that drains her of all that made her vital and alive. She is searching for this vitality and for her own soul to return to her body. The last lifetime she is able to remember is one in which she was killed in the area of the train tracks that she explores daily. She is drawn to this site in hopes of being able to recover what she lost of herself, but because so much of her energy has been taken, she is but a shell of her former self. She is extremely sensitive to energy, as are you, but because she dabbled with the occult and the dark forces in trying to make the one she pursues love her, the entity was able to take hold. She also has an addiction to heroin, and this keeps her consciousness in a state of arrest. Her mind and body are not well enough or strong enough to stand up to the entity and demand that it leave her alone. She is quite lost in a world that those around her do not understand. Her mother has an inherent knowledge of the entity and fears it. But the entity is only made of dark energy, and it could easily be dispelled by the application of healing light. It would not take long before the entity would leave the consciousness, but there are many other problems which also need addressing. First and foremost, the substance abuse issue. This girl is in need of a great deal of help, but unfortunately, your world simply labels her illness as mental and assumes she has a malfunctioning of the physical apparatus, which is the brain. The entity is not intelligent, nor is it evil, such as your movies have tried to convey about these occurrences. It simply saw an opportunity to house and feed itself, and of this it availed itself. This situation can only be remedied through the application of love and light with the free will of the afflicted. Unfortunately, this is not a likely potential. You can send love and light and ask the entity to vacate the premises, but this may have only marginal effect. So this channeling came through in 2014 before I knew anything about Spirit Releasement Therapy and before I had the experience in Sedona in 2017 with the light beings who told me my mission was to clear people who have these types of attachments. And if you're interested in knowing more about that, you can see my video on what happened in Sedona in 2017. Since then, I have become a transpersonal hypnotherapist, and I've studied and been guided in the methods that can be used to help rid people of entities that are draining their energy and making them unwell. I combine my abilities as a medium with my knowledge of hypnosis, because while some hypnotherapists have to employ a medium to connect with earthbound spirit attachments, I don't need to do this, because I can connect myself and talk directly to the entity or to the spirit that is occupying the person's body or their energy field. I also have a degree in professional counseling, But it was when I discovered Spirit Releasement Therapy that I was really able to help people who have this kind of issue. So here's how it works. A person might have an earthbound spirit attached to them. For example, people who die in the throes of addiction and do not move into the light after death frequently look for a living body to attach onto so they can continue abusing and using. This is why some people just cannot seem to break free from their addictions, because an earthbound spirit might well be fueling their need to keep using. Another example is if a person dabbles in the occult without knowing what they are doing, such as using Ouija boards, for example. They can end up calling a dark energy force that is more than willing to attach to them and cause the effect described in the reading above. Certain types of trauma can also cause entity attachments because it causes holes in a person's auric or energy field, and this then becomes an entry point for an entity. Some people have more than one entity attachment, and it may take a lot of time to clear them of each one. Some earthbound spirits do not attach to anyone who's still living, but do not realize they are dead. I did a reading recently for someone whose loved one committed suicide, and the spirit expressed frustration because he kept calling out and shouting to get the attention of the loved one, and they, of course, ignored him because they could not hear him. He kept asking me, "Am I dead?" His last words to his loved one were, "Pray for me." Of course, most people have no knowledge of these kinds of, I call them spiritual emergencies. However, consider the fact that virtually every belief system known to man has a name for the entities that I have just described. I took a course from an Orthodox rabbi and learned that in the Jewish tradition, earthbound souls are called daibak. In the Islamic world, they're called jinn. In the Christian tradition, they're called demons. You might be shocked to find out just how much illness and disease, in fact, has the spiritual etiology or a cause, and more importantly, the degree to which people can heal after the entities are removed. I will do many more videos talking about spirit releasement therapy and how it works and the kinds of entities that attach to people, and a particular book that was very important in my learning all of this was called Remarkable Healings, and it was written by a psychiatrist. So that's all for now. Hope this video was somewhat enlightening.